It's Corso and Catone. Brought to you by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe's with us in the booth. You are watching us on YouTube. And hey, when you're on YouTube, make sure you give us that subscribe, like Joe's putting on the screen right now. Like the show, give it that thumbs up, and make sure you get that bell, get all our notifications, and check out our shorts. Those are pretty good. They're entertaining and very popular. So take a look at the shorts. And if you're listening to us, you're doing that on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, anywhere you podcast, and of course 790 The Score in Rhode Island there. We were just talking all nice things about the region and all of that. So can't wait to move back there.
Oh, yeah, right.
So want to hear from you in our email, our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com, or you can give us a call on our heated hotline, 855-313-PATS, P-A-T-S. Leave a message 24/7. Anything's on the table. Keep it clean. Got a good one. We're going to hear from one of you in Heated Hotline, and going to go B's and C's. Big news that we're recording Thursday. So big news that happened today with the sale of the Celtics. We'll talk about it. Of course, Catone's comments. Stick around for that. And Yankees versus Red Sox as the baseball season starts for them in a week. Hi, guys.
What's going on? Yeah, you look aggravated today. I don't understand it.
I had a bad day today. Wow. I had a bad day, and I'm now going to take it out on everybody.
All right.
All right, there we go.
So,
listen, I'm happy today because, at least the next couple of weeks, Chris, kind of gets us a little closer to the draft, and then basketball playoffs start, NBA, and you know what I mean? It's March Madness. It's the NCAA basketball tournament, which, gets you going a little bit. Then you get into the NBA playoffs, and then it's draft season.
See, this is because you're a glasses half full kind of person, okay? The way I look at it, I don't see it as, hey, we got some time and then we get to the draft. I see it as we have time to be irritated because we know we're going to get pissed off when we get to the draft. You see, that's kind of how the glass is half empty. But
you're just a miserable SOB, aren't you?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's see who else is miserable, if anyone else is miserable out there. We're going to hear from somebody in the nation. Heated Hotline. Joe?
This is another write-in. We get a write-in from Jeff from Franklin.
Oh,
so I've been hearing all week.
Place? Isn't it a nice place to live, Franklin?
Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah,
nicer than where you are, maybe. Who knows? Anyways, he writes it. We get a lot of write-ins, and so I've been going through some of them. This one says, so I've been hearing all week long about the fact that the Patriots are drafting from a bad spot because now they're drafting for need. I'm just sick and tired of passing on athletes and passing on playmakers. So fine, if we go get an offensive tackle that's not going to put points on the board for us, these guys don't know what the hell they're doing, and they haven't known what they're doing for the last 5 years. I'm truly disgusted. Please help me understand. Jeff, let's help you understand.
Thank you, Jeff from Franklin. We appreciate the write-in. A lot there, Mark. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this was the whole thing in free agency, right? It was, okay, we're going to make sure we get the people we need, so this way we don't have to draft for need. Well,
and Chris, that's always been a philosophical question, right? Whenever you get to the draft with certain organizations, do you draft for need or are you drafting for the best available, no matter whether it's a need or not? Is he the best available player at that point on the board? Are you taking him or are you going to no, we're going to take a guy that's not as high as him on our board because we need that other position? And I think teams go through that philosophically and what do you do in those situations?
Well, this is interesting because you're right. When you talk about the whole need thing, say, all right, draft for need, draft for just the best available player on the board, right?
Yep.
Well, in this situation, the best available player on the board is going to be a need.
because we have so many holes.
so many needs.
All right.
So my point, Jeff, is don't lose hope on the playmaker, because in this particular situation, that playmaker is Travis Hunter, and if he's on the board, he also happens to be the best available player. I mean, Mark, do you disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with that, Chris, because listen, I said a couple of weeks back, I didn't think he'd be available because I thought he'd go in the top 4, but it seems like I'm being proven wrong. I think you're going to end up being right here, Chris, because now all of a sudden we're hearing talk about the quarterbacks. You got to take. Now it's all of a sudden Shador, Sanders. Well, now if depending on where these guys land and these couple of veterans that are left in free agency, the Giants have to take a quarterback. Now, instead of Abdul Carter, everyone's saying, well, Tennessee's going to take Cam Ward. So now that's a big shift, Chris. So you're going to end up with probably Hunter, because I do think Carter will go to the Browns. But if he doesn't, you're going to get Brown. You're going to get Carter or Hunter, which would be, either one of them would be the best available at that point. Both are probably the 2 best players in this draft.
Yeah.
Right?
Now you're coming around. I told you 8,000 times the quarterbacks are going. They're going.
I just can't believe it, Chris, because I don't see Sanders being, but I think you're right. The more every day, he seems to be catching momentum. Like you said he would.
It just doesn't matter. Did you think Wilson was good out of BYU? He went the second in the draft. Like these guys, it's just they talk themselves into it because they're so afraid. If you're the Giants, you're so scared in the front office, the way these guys lose their jobs. You're so afraid that if I pass on a quarterback, and clearly they need one, and the kid turns out to be okay, I'm screwed. My job's over now. Because why? I got Hunter.
Yeah. So getting back to the question, Jeff's question, Chris. So do they pass on the best available, and do they draft down? If Hunter's there, do they slide 4 spots, 3 spots, trade down, get some draft capital, and take a tackle? Because that's an area of need.
Well, then if you're doing that, then you are drafting for need. Because you're saying
which is what Jeff, I think, is afraid of.
Right. Because basically what you're saying is we need a lot of stuff. So we better get picks so we can take the things we need.
Yeah.
Well, those players at those spots where you gain those picks, are those players going to be the best available player? No, they're going to be more players that you need. So my whole thing is, what are the 2 biggest gaping holes on this team right now, Mark?
Left tackle, and wide receiver.
Right. The best available player in the draft, assume it's Hunter at that spot. That fills the need, coincidentally, but he's the best available player. You take him.
What if it's Carter? What if Hunter goes and Carter's there? Do you take Carter?
That's a tough one now. Because, if you're drafting the best available player, then I guess you got to take him. If you're drafting for need, nope. You got to trade out.
You don't think they need him?
Do they need a defensive end that bad?
Is Landry
No.
the solution at edge, or is he just a temporary fill-up?
No, that's temporary. I mean, that's.
So do you take a guy like Carter who could be an All-Pro for 7-8 years?
But to me, you do, because he's the best player at that spot. Look, the 2 best players in this draft are Carter and Hunter. I agree with you. That's it. Those are the 2 best players in this draft.
But based on one of them is there, you pass on. But based on need, if Carter's there, you think they could pass on him?
I think they will.
Wow.
I think they will pass on him. I don't know. I don't know if Vrabel. I mean, we act like Vrabel is just big on, best player in there. He's drafted all these wide receivers and not so much.
He hasn't really drafted that many wide receivers, Chris.
No. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But it makes me think about a couple of things, though, that Jeff brought this up now. So we know those 2 positions are the 2 highest needs on the team you just mentioned.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the wide receiver then. Okay.
Okay.
To me, the 3 guys to look at are Hunter, McMillan, and say that guy's name again, Mark. The one from Ohio State.
Oh,
Egbuka.
Egbuka. Yeah.
Sorry if we're mispronouncing it, but
yep.
you know. So out of these three, this situation, okay, talk about these three players briefly.
I'm not. Listen, I know there was this big debate over McMillan this week because the Big 12 had their pro day, and supposedly he ran a 4.58. At his size, people thought that was a real good time. They said he's a real good route runner. Now all of a sudden people are coming back around on McMillan. Where about 2 weeks ago, he started to slide down draft boards. Now he's coming back up draft boards. This goes on before the draft, Chris. It's craziness. I'm not a fan of him. Went to Arizona. I don't like those receivers from those schools. He may turn out to be a fantastic player. I wouldn't draft him if it's me personally. Hunter, yeah, Chris, if he's there, I take him. I just think he's a physical freak. I understand his level of competition that he played wasn't the greatest either. However, I just think with his physical attributes, Chris, if you make him a full-time receiver or he's a receiver 85% of the time, maybe there's a few defensive snaps, you can figure out how to incorporate him at corner.
Yeah.
I think he becomes a top-notch wide receiver in this league. Chris, if you look at how he fights for balls and takes balls, it goes up and gets balls, the one thing that scares me about him, Chris.
His weight?
No.
We don't want to get to the other guy, so yeah.
No, I want to get the other guy, but the one thing that scares me about Hunter that nobody's mentioning, Chris, is because you know me with wide receivers, I went back and looked at tape last week. If he played against such a poor quality of competition, why is it we never seen him take a screen or a short pass for 70 yards? I don't think a touchdown over 50 yards the entire season.
I think 62 yards was the high.
I don't even know about that. Not this year. Go back and look. I don't think his senior year he did, Chris. He never got a ball and ran away from the field.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Right. So there wasn't these big explosive.
Well, the point is he didn't have a 65 or more.
No.
Touchdown.
If he's playing that weak competition and he's that good.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have saw that. The kid from Ohio State, Chris, I love him. I think he's going to catch 85, 90, 100 balls in this league. He's the smartest wide receiver. He runs the best routes. I think he's another Jackson Smith-Najee. I think teams that pass on him are going to make a mistake. And I like him. I like him a lot, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people saying, well, with Hunter, he's 188 pounds. He's only 6 feet. I'm not worried about the height, but the 188, they're worried about him getting off a jam. He'll have trouble against the bigger corners out there that can jam him up at the line, whatever.
And they're saying McMillan won't have that issue, Chris. That's what they're saying.
I doubt. Because he's 6'5", 212.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm running away from McMillan. I'm just not going to take a receiver from that conference.
If you like McMillan, Chris, listen, if you like McMillan, and for some reason you can't get the kid Hunter or the kid from Ohio State in the second round, you take Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. He's coming from a similar school. He has similar size, but I think he's a better receiver than McMillan, in my opinion. I would take him in the second round. I wouldn't waste you don't want to waste a first round draft pick on McMillan. You can get Higgins in the second round.
I think things you could do. Yeah, absolutely. That's if Hunter's. But again, if Hunter's there, you take him.
Depending on who's there. Yeah, exactly.
And then just really quick with the tackles. So let's say, for example, okay, we want to move and take a tackle. All right. So let's say they don't do what we want, but they want the tackle. I mean, I'm not drafting Campbell.
Do you take Campbell, Chris?
If I'm going to take Campbell, I'm going to trade. I'm going to trade a couple of spots because I still can get Campbell at 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, but you brought it up last week, Chris. You saw what happened against an elite edge guy to Joe Tourney in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that'll be Campbell. That'll be Campbell, Chris.
I did say that, but just be a little bit. What I should have also said is be a little careful about that because you had it's not apples to apples because you took a guard and you made him play tackle. All the techniques that you use as a tackle, the things you learn, I mean, there's a reason why they're two different positions. You know, Tooney he hasn't perfected those. You know,
Okay.
he's a god.
All right.
So
All
he's never had to do that stuff. So it was definitely a Band-Aid. So we got to be careful a little bit about that. But the short arms, yeah, they do make a difference. You got a pass rusher that got those kind of arms. But Banks, Mark, 6'4", 320 out of Texas. If you're going to move down, take this guy's a walk on the field and start. I mean, I good footwork, inside vertical reach to spots on time. He's good with that. His hands and pass protection are probably the best out of any tackles I've seen in this draft. So he's good at baiting guys. His agility to stride out and slide and all those things are good. You know, are there some negatives about him too? Yeah, a little bit. You know, gets cut off on some blocks sometimes and so on. But to me, I'll take him. If I'm going to trade down, I'm going to take him, and I'm going to figure out a way. I don't want this Membu.
You don't want the right tackle from
no, because he's a right tackle.
Chris.
Get away from me with the right tackles now. I had enough of that. You know.
And Chris, how about and since we're talking about left tackle, Cam Robinson signs a 1 year prove it deal.
12 that could become 14 or something.
Could be 14 or 15. Why aren't you in on him for 1 year? I just don't get it, Chris.
No, I don't understand either. Because maybe it's a foregone conclusion that they're just going to draft one. I don't know. But
yeah, probably.
So, tomorrow on the Pats Nation, we're going to talk a lot more depth on these guys that we're talking about. But Jeff, yeah, listen, I mean,
we're frustrated too, Jeff.
Yeah, but just rest easy a little bit, Jeff, because they have needs at everywhere. So the best available player at that spot is probably somebody they need, no matter what. So,
they have so many holes, yeah.
Exactly. But Heated Hotline was presented by the Pats Nation Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tune in tomorrow. As I said, we're going to have more breakdown of these particular players and a lot more depth. But when we come back, we're going to go B's and C's. Stick around.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal. New England Field. I almost said Pats Nation. Pats Nation, Corso and Catone.
What are you going to do?
Still us.
That's all right. It's us.
Want to talk Bruins and Celtics?
Do we have to talk about the Bruins?
Joe?
Hit it! The Boston Celtics are the world champions, and they have shown the world how great a ball club they really are. Screen shot,
All right, Mark. I was going to start with the Bruins, talk a little bit about Swayman, but I think it's Thursday, as I said, we're recording, and the breaking news today was that the Celtics have been sold. I mean, with still waiting on league approval, but they've been sold.
Much, yeah.
So let's start with the Celtics. Sold to Bill Krisham. He is the owner of Symphony Technological Group. Mark,
Yeah.
$6.4 billion.
How much was that again?
6.4. And I hear that when all is said and done, it could be something about going up to $7 billion.
So they're one of the richest. They're one of the most valued franchises in all. That is the most.
That would be the most expensive cost to a sports franchise in this in the this here region.
Okay.
United States ever.
Wow.
I think they're overpaying for them.
Yeah.
Especially given the fact that there's no stadium, no arena. They don't own an arena.
No.
You're buying a lease.
So let me ask you this, Chris. Would it be a mistake now that they spent all that money to try to find a land or a piece of property somewhere and build their own arena and move out of that Boston arena? Would that hurt them?
I think if they're willing to put their own money, you think those cheap bastard politicians where you are going to give money for that?
No, but I'm saying if they're willing to spend $7 billion on the team,
yeah.
I'm saying if they find a spot and are willing to fund it themselves, would it hurt them the fans, like would it hurt them fan base wise by moving away from that arena in that area because it's so iconic over there? You know what I mean?
I think no, I don't think for those reasons. But indirectly it may, because here's the issue with this sale. You know, when you go and you look a little bit into, I heard this today, when you start reading up on this Symphony Technological Group and all that, basically what this is a group. This is a guy that comes into your business if you want to earn more, and basically slashes, cuts, you know, turns your business more profitable by taking away things in the business. Okay.
Oh, here we
So
go.
this is what this dude does. All right. So what does that translate to? Okay. Next year, they're going to be about $500 million against that luxury tax. Okay. Do you honestly think, now, given what I just told you, do you honestly think this guy is going to spend $6.5 billion on this team, which is an overpay, and then come in and just continue to keep that roster the same and continue to keep those salaries where they are?
No. And Chris, it's interesting to note that they did not accept the bid from the minority owner.
Pagliuca.
He was
Pagliuca
pissed.
is his name.
He was pissed because he said he had a group that was willing to come up with the cash. He was pissed because he thought that he should have been given that, you know. He
basically said today that the luxury, I don't remember the exact wording, but basically the luxury tax is not going to be an issue. Like we're not going to be, that's not going to
Who said that? The new owner?
Pagliuca, no, Steve Pagliuca.
Oh, yeah. He would have.
Now he's walking. He knows he didn't get the team.
Of course you say that now because he's walking away.
He's walking away. So naturally it's like, hey, fans, you're screwed now. I wouldn't have done that. But
Chris, does this new owner become a John Henry type owner? Or listen, even Kraft, you know, or Kraft where, you know, you're going to be a bottom line, you know, whatever it's going to be, this is where we're going to stay because this now has to become a profitable business so I can get my money back, you know, which if that's the case, Chris, you're not going to be winning championships.
Well, I mean, okay, if you're going to look at Henry, I mean, for a while, he was all in.
He did. And then once he made his money and had success and won his rings, okay, now it becomes, okay, how can we maximize money here?
Right. And you could say the same thing for Kraft, I guess. I am not a person that looks back on Kraft like everybody else does as if he spent so much for quality players.
He never did. He just got lucky that he caught he hit the lottery. Right. He had caught Belichick and Brady, you know.
Right. So, you know, no, I think Celtics fans, I think you're screwed. I think you better win this year.
So at the very least, Chris, if you win it this year, though, I guess he could break the team up and stop making some trades. But at the very least, you'd have one more year because I think Porzingis, at the end of next year, you'd have to re-sign him, and this guy won't re-sign him.
No, but I think you trade. But you can trade him based on the fact that you want to clear the salary.
That's what I'm saying, though. If you could keep status quo one more year.
Oh, you mean after this year?
Yeah, and then based on salaries that are going to be coming available, you can break this team up and do it that way. Or you could do it in the summer and start trading some pieces away, especially if you repeat. Right?
Well, now there's a lot of pressure on them to do just that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, well, I think Drew Holiday is probably going to be a casualty here. You know, I don't, especially with the way Pritchard's playing.
And you know what, Chris, at his age, if you can squeeze another championship out of him, what's he, 35?
Well, yeah, you know, I can look it up.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. However, I would disagree with slashing Porzingis because he's still got, I think he's still got 3-4 good years left in him. Where Holiday, Chris, is at the end of the road. I think he's got
34.
34. You know what I mean? I guess that you could see it, perhaps, right? I don't know, but it's kind of interesting.
You look at the gods on this team, you know, and you say, okay, well, there's Derek White. I mean, Jaylen Brown plays as a guard, doesn't he?
Kinda. He's kind of a hybrid.
You know, that starting unit,
Yeah. And that's starting unit.
Yeah,
Well,
the
no,
starting unit, he plays as a
unit,
forward. Yeah.
he's a forward. He's a small forward.
So with Pritchard and White, I think you feel okay with that. You know, I mean, Holiday didn't have, he had an injury layered. You know, all these guys, Mark.
And that's a concern.
They all had career years last year. Like
They did.
Like
They did.
Derek White. Derek White is not, you know, he's come back to reality. Drew Holiday has come back to reality. I mean, they're not.
And Chris, moving forward, you gotta try to make sure you can stay healthy, because now Tatum and Brown are getting nicked up a little bit here, down the stretch. So this
Do
is
you think it would be a situation where Brown and Tatum always stay?
Yes.
And they just move the other parts around.
Yes. Yep. And
Well,
they'll
that's
just
not
continue
bad.
to.
That's okay.
They'll
I mean,
just
those are
continue to build. If you can continue to build around Brown and Tatum, you could have something similar to what Golden State had. They always kept Thompson and Curry together.
Right.
And yeah, Draymond Green was kind of there too. But Thompson and Curry were always the key, Chris. And they just continually built around them. And that's how they won all those championships and stayed so relevant for all those years. And then, obviously Thompson got old and Curry's getting older. But that was the group, Chris. They kept building around those two guys.
Well, the beauty about a team like this, especially if they repeat, is that guys now on this team, in the face, Drew Holiday, for example, in the face of saying, all right, well, we're gonna let you go. We need to get rid of that contract or whatever. What's to stop him from saying, I don't want to be anywhere else. What do you need me to do with my contract?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need me to do? If they sucked, then that would be a different story. But
that's a good point, Chris.
And the last thing we'll talk about, I don't think we're going to get to the Bruins. Does anybody care, really? I mean, Swayman sucks, and his contract sucks. And if he doesn't play better, they're screwed for a long, long time.
Listen.
Your Bruins.
All you need to know about the Bruins, besides that, Chris, is they lost to the Buffalo Sabres the other day, who had lost like 8-9 games in a row. Yeah. They were like the worst
at
team
home
in hockey, and they came into Boston and beat it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
keep talking about the Celtics.
So when you talk about players that could be Porzingis, that brings me to him. So you say, well, okay, he is he even around? Is he even factor in? Because he didn't factor much in last year to the win, to the championship. Now, they were shooting out of their skin, and they were having all career years. But, Mark, to me, this year, if you don't have Porzingis against Cleveland, Cleveland will beat you. Mobley will – if Porzingis is not there, Mobley will dominate that series, and that's exactly what needs to happen for Cleveland to beat Boston. Mobley has got to be the guy. Mannix, I think, said this too.
You're right, and I'm going to be honest with you, Chris. And if he's not there, you can't beat OKC either without him.
Yeah,
you won't. Especially if the tall, skinny kid, the white kid from Gonzaga, God, his name's I'm forgetting his name now. Chet Holmgren. Yeah. If Holmgren is healthy for OKC, Chris, you won't beat them either. If you don't have Porzingis, you won't beat them.
Yeah. So do they need Porzingis? They need him this year.
They need him.
They're
going
to need him this year for how. Look, we said this last year too. Like, Celtics got lucky in the sense of, they got lucky because they didn't really face. I'm trying to think. They didn't face a big man. They didn't face somebody that could really. Like, we were worried about Minnesota getting in because of the big guys they got there. They didn't really. They kind of avoided that, didn't they? Because Mobley was hurt during that series.
You mean Cleveland?
No, I know. I'm saying both teams. Like, we were worried about Minnesota.
We didn't face.
And then against Cleveland,
Mobley
was hurt.
We didn't have to face Denver. Jokic got knocked out, right? So you're right. We did avoid the big guys. You're right. We did. So we avoided them last year. You're 100% correct. And you know what's interesting, Chris, too? He must be drinking the same wine that LeBron's drinking, because all of a sudden now it's almost April, and Horford is starting to round back into playoff form. He's like ageless. He's gay. People keep talking about LeBron. Well, let me tell you something. Horford's ageless too, Chris.
He's going to be there. The dude just shows up when you need him.
The dude shows up. He's going to be there.
Yeah. So, but if they have to play Cleveland with Horford and then Cornette coming off the bench,
no, they have a problem.
They're going to have a problem. I mean, Porzingis' first game back, 24 points, 32 minutes, and that was no Brown, no Tatum in that game. So you better keep him healthy, and then we'll see what happens. They're also still having.
Do you think, Chris, that illness was that long? Or do you think it was just like, okay, he was sick for a few days and they're like, hey, listen, let's just take a break. Let's milk it, rest, get yourself ready. Take a couple of weeks off and just rest.
Maybe
I don't know.
they milked it a little bit. Maybe.
I
Couldn't
know,
blame
and
him.
maybe not. I don't want to say that. I mean, the man was sick. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's just
I
he
can't
was out
blame
a
him
long
if they
time.
did. I can't blame
No,
if they did.
you got to
So-
do whatever you can to get him on the court, Chris, for the playoffs.
So we'll see what happens. Pay attention. Tune into this show, and let's see if they can fix their fourth quarter problems, losing focus and losing big leads. That's still an issue. So let's stick around for that. But D's and C's was presented by Corso Law Group, corsolawgroup.com. We come back. Buckle up. Catone's comments is next.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to corsolawgroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help.
Time for Catone's Comments!
Listen, this week, special anniversary. No, it wasn't my anniversary. No, not me and my wife. No, special anniversary, though. This past week was 5 years since Brady left and signed with Tampa Bay. 5 years. Hard to believe it's been 5 years, right? With all that COVID and all that craziness that was going on back then. It's been 5 years since Brady left. So, because it's been 5 years, it's the 5th year anniversary. Let's talk a little bit about what happened, and let's talk about where this franchise has gone in the past 5 years since Brady left. Okay, offensively, this team is 28th in the NFL since Tom left. Okay, their record is 33-51 since Tom left. They've gone through. This is their 3rd head coach since he's left. This is their 5th offensive coordinator since he left. They've had 7 starting quarterbacks due to injury, due to benching, due to whatever you wanted to call it, but 7 combinations of starting quarterbacks. They have 0, I repeat, 0 playoff wins. And do you know how many home wins they've had in the past since Brady left? 14. Let that sink in for a minute. 14 home wins. They were unbeatable at home with Brady. They've had 14 in 5 years. That's an embarrassment. Now, just chronologically, let's think about some of the milestones over the last 5 years. 2020, Cam Newton has to be brought in the summer because you had no plan when you let Brady walk out the door. So they bring him in the summer. He starts 15 out of 16 games, and that was that crazy year. There was no, like, the COVID year, no fans, this, that. It was a crazy year. I get it. But he throws 8 touchdown passes that entire season. 8. Are you kidding me? You were that desperate? You had a guy that couldn't throw the ball anymore, actually playing quarterback every week because you had nobody else, and you had no plan to replace that man, but you let him walk out the door. So now, 2021, you draft the quarterback. You draft Mac Jones, who they propped up and with pillows and made him, comfortable and made him look halfway decent the first 8 or 9 games of the season, 10 games. And then the rest of the league realized this kid's got no arm. He can't throw that out to the sideline. Let's step up a little bit. Let's get tighter on receivers. Let's play a little more man on man because there's certain throws that this kid can't make. It took about 9 or 10 games for the league to figure it out. And once they did, we got beat 47-17 in the wild card game when they figured out this kid actually stinks. 2022, Belichick has the great, what an idea this was. Let's make Matt Patricia the offensive coordinator, let him call offensive plays. In what universe would anybody have that man call offensive plays? Well, and Mac Jones ends up getting, he gets benched multiple times, right? 23, Bill O'Brien shows up. They try Mac Jones again. Then Bill O'Brien's gone, fired. The end of that. Belichick fired.
Let's not forget what was going on the defensive side of the ball. And was it
I'm not even
Belichick
getting to that.
Jr. or was it Mayo?
Would you stop interrupting me? I'm talking about offense and Brady. Now, you love to throw your 2 cents in with defense. We're not worried about defense.
What's the team in general?
Okay, I'll get to that, Mister. I want Gonzalez over Smith the Jima. Okay, now, listen, now. Then last year's the whole Gerard Mayo fiasco, which I'm not even going to recap. Now, besides that, the drafts are horrendous. And the drafting started before Brady left. Okay, do we got to rehash N'Keal Harry? No. Do we got to rehash Cole Strange? No. Do we got to rehash Isaiah Wynn and Sonny Michel? No. Do we got to rehash all the second, third round picks that don't even stay on the roster, where other teams are getting starters every year from those draft numbers, those draft rounds? We have nothing to show for, not just over the last 7 years, the last 8 years. Chris mentions defense, which I was getting to, but I was rudely interrupted. So defensively, they stunk. The team got old. Yeah, it was smoke and mirrors, and who defensive coordinators? They had the son, they had Belichick's son, Gerard Mayo, who was calling plays, who was talking to the players in the locker room. Listen, I said right along when they hired Mayo that Belichick, no matter what you wanted to say about him, at his core was a defensive coach, and he covered for the horrible center of the field defense and a lack of talent on that defense. He covered for it. Last year showed you how much he covered for it. Vrabel takes over, looks at tape. He's wiped out that whole defensive room. He's wiped out the whole defensive room. Wiped it out. Pretty much. He's replacing everybody because, this guy's holding up signs like I don't know what he is over here. He's holding up signs in the back. All right. Listen, I just did Chris a solid because I didn't even get into the N'Keal Harry pick. I'm not even going to get into that pick. Another guy, I'm okay with that pick. Another pick, Chris, but anyway, this is where this team has gone in the last 5 years. And this is the anniversary of that. That letting Brady walk out that door was the greatest player in the history of football. You let walk out the door as a coach and an ownership group. You let that man walk out the door. It's unfathomable to me. I can't believe what they did by letting that man walk out the door, Chris. It still boggles my mind. And I get enraged with anger every time I think of the fact that they let him walk out that door. The greatest to ever do it. How do you do that?
Am I?
You're allowed to speak now.
I don't want to hear any more about N'Keal Harry. Shut up about N'Keal Harry. The common denominator in all this throughout the whole time is who?
Belichick? Kraft.
Yeah. Listen, yeah, I mean they've sucked ever since he left. No question. Did they suck because Belichick was a bad coach? No. They sucked because Belichick was a bad manager. He was a bad custodian of the front office. I mean, period.
Yeah.
And they sucked because Bob Kraft, I'm going to say it. He's a bad owner. He's a bad owner.
I didn't go that far.
He's just good at making people think he's not.
Is he a bad owner, Chris, or is he a businessman who's always treated this as a business and turned it into one of the most lucrative franchises in the history of professional sports, Chris? Okay, and always kept the bottom line and ran it like he ran one of his businesses. And so is that it, or is he a bad owner?
Okay, then
I'm just asking. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I'm going to answer it. So depends on what you define a good owner to be. Okay. See, here's the problem. If you define a good owner to be a transparent owner, okay, who will tell you that you know what, this is an investment for me and this is what I'm doing and so on and so forth. Okay. But if you're a bad owner when you tell everybody that you'll do whatever, that you're a fan first, okay?
That's always been his narrative, Chris, right?
And I get it. 30 years ago, or however long,
he sat in those bench seats.
Oh man, 50 years ago. But whatever years ago, you kept them in New England. You saved the team from moving and all that stuff. And great, okay, and you're clinging to that for all that time, I guess. But you've consistently told people, fans, I'll do whatever it takes to put a winner on this field. And it's bullshit. It's baloney. It's that's not true. So to me, you're a bad owner. So if you define an owner, a good owner, as somebody who makes a lot of money, then he's a fantastic owner. But if you define a good owner as somebody who puts a good product on the field,
6 rings.
Yeah, I get it. But how responsible is he really for those 6 rings? I mean, really?
Yeah.
It's not like he sat there and said, okay, we're going to sign all these free agents. We're going to put the top talent on this team every single year. What about Randy Moss? Well, Randy Moss was washed up. Nobody wanted him. So Tom Brady rebuilt Randy Moss. And so my point is, it's not like you went out and just spent money and got the best of everything you possibly could for this team. No, you had 2 guys that could take mediocre and make it unbelievable. Yeah. You didn't invest in the whole place. You didn't invest in the locker room. You didn't invest in all those things. Had they been doing surveys back then, you would have seen it too.
And then when they questioned him about it, Chris, I wasn't aware of that.
Unaware.
I was unaware.
Who is the guy? I want to know if you compare them in the situation to the 49ers when Joe Montana obviously got injured and was reluctantly let go, right? It was at that time for them, they had the guy saying, well, we got Jr. Steve Young and we still got Rice.
It was Eddie DeBartolo Jr. was running things back then, Chris, right? For the ownership group. Yeah. Eddie DeBartolo had all the power back then for San Francisco, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But the point is saying like, oh, we got these guys. We can let them walk away.
Common Policy was was work. Him and Common Policy were running things back then. Am I dating myself?
No, you're right. You're right, Joe and Mark. And so, the point is though, the people that were put in place, see, like you're a bad. If you suck this bad since Belichick left, then you can't take credit for being. You know what I mean? Like it should never have skipped a beat. Then, if you're that good of an owner, it shouldn't have skipped a beat. This is 5 years now of just not just you're not a good football team. It's garbage. It's not just like we're not that great. It's garbage. It's a garbage product. It's garbage coaching. It's garbage management. It's garbage players. It's garbage locker rooms, planes, childcare, training facility. Everything is garbage with this team.
And you know what, Chris? Belichick covered for that for so many years with Brady. And then even after Brady left, Belichick kind of covered as long as he could, because Belichick has a piece in this, Chris, because of the horrible drafts. And you mentioned that.
He
was a bad custodian
of ridiculous amount responsible for this.
No, you mentioned
absolutely.
it, and you did mention that. You did. But I'm going to say this though, and all of that, Chris, comes to a crumbling decision point with Mayo, because all of it is heightened 1,000% because Mayo was so over his head. Yeah. Even the year before, Chris, with Belichick, they went 4-13. But I would argue if they had better quarterback play, they probably would have won 8 games that year, maybe 9. He had no quarterback.
If you want to look at present day and say, okay, he's a bad owner. Why? Because Elliott Wolf was still here. He's a bad owner.
Okay.
Why? Because he keeps making his puppets feed you culture.
Okay.
And now Diggs is in town for a visit. And makes everybody stare away from the money. But for nothing else. Nothing else. You're a bad owner because you allowed Tom Brady to leave. Period.
But that was like his son.
End of story.
Remember he said he came to my house, we cried, he told
Yeah.
me, and I
Bullshit.
knew, it was time for Tom. It was good for Tom, and I let him go.
Yeah, it was only good for
that's such BS.
It was only good for Tom because you let it happen. Listen, what the hell you think Brady came to that house for? You really think Brady came to that house for kumbaya? Thanks, Bob. No, he came to that house as a last-ditch effort to get this guy to turn over. And Kraft wouldn't do it. So don't give me this Belichick. I held it together as long as I could. I know we're over. I held it together as long as I could. No, you're the owner. You could have held it together in perpetuity. You could have held it together for good. Just pay
Chris,
the man.
all he had to do when Garoppolo left was give him a 5-year contract.
pay
It'll
the man.
take you to the age you claim you want to play until. I'm giving
That's
you a 5-year contract, Tom. At that point, they could have worked out numbers. Tom would have signed a deal, but Kraft didn't do it.
If you're as good as handling people and managing humans and people and all that stuff like you claim you are, then you should be able to get Belichick and Brady on board with a contract extension and where Belichick doesn't walk out the door. Period. That's it. You let that crumble, that means you're a bad owner. End of story.
And that, my friends, is what has happened the last 5 years since on the anniversary of Tom Brady leaving this week was the anniversary.
There you go, Mark. Good stuff. Catone's Comments was presented by the Pats Nation. Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Hey, we're going to talk a lot of free agent stuff. We're going to talk draft a lot tomorrow. So make sure you are tuning into that. But when we come back, going to talk Yankees versus Red Sox. No flipping.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England Field. I had the same shirt on in that promo, Joe. You gotta
Looks like somebody doesn't change his clothes.
You know, update my wardrobe a little bit, huh?
There you go.
You know, so all right. So a week from now, I know they started already. They're playing overseas or something.
Oh,
the
the Cubs and the Dodgers played in Tokyo 2 games.
Yeah. But for the Yankees and Red Sox, the season begins next week, and we need to discuss some things. Let's do it in Yankees versus Red Sox, Joe. That's the Godzilla wash. I'm talking about Tokyo.
There you go. Oh, listen, I get like video clips at like 3:00 in the morning, Joe. He's watching like Godzilla takes Tokyo. Yeah. He's watching this craziness, right?
Doesn't it? I know we're in baseball right now, but man, doesn't it piss you off, Mark? How far down the Patriots have gone? I mean, just. And when you bring up that in that last segment, when you shed some light on it again, and really start going through it, it's
the
just,
numbers.
When you do those numbers, that sheds hopefully that's a light that the whole team says, oh, okay, we gotta do something now.
And Joe, you know what? I don't know if our viewers really, until you talk numbers like that, I don't even know if our viewers realize how far they've fallen, Joe.
Right.
You take a light. Turn that lighthouse on. Maybe it'll shed some of that light on the miserable. But okay,
all right, let's go.
Talking about baseball. So, all right, Mark, they're going to go into the season next week. How you feel about New York?
Chris, they got so many injuries on the staff. I'm nervous because listen, you got pitchers out, a couple of pitchers out. You got Stanton's out, Cole's out, Clark Schmidt. Right arm soreness through a bullpen session. They think he's going to be ready, but they don't know. He might miss his first start. Lewis Hill is going to be probably out until the All-Star break. I mean, they're going to have to fill the back end of this rotation. They're going to have to try and survive until Ill comes back. I mean, Cole is gone, so they're going to, everyone thought they want to make a deal, try to bring in another pitcher. They didn't do that. People keep saying, they're going to bring in another DH. They haven't done that. I think Steinbrenner is told Cashman we're at our limit. We're going to, maybe at the trade deadline we'll bring in reinforcements, but right now we're going to go what we got, and we're going to go with this salary. We're going to see, Chris, a couple of encouraging things, though. I don't want to be totally negative. It seems like Jason Dominguez is starting to come around. He's been fielding better. He's been hitting better. He's gotten a couple of home runs in the last week and a half, 10 days. His swing is starting to look like the swing he had 2 years ago before he got hurt. And he's starting to get more confidence at the plate. So that's a great sign. Ben Royce, who last year came up a little bit, played some first base when Rizzo got hurt, is really hot the last 3 weeks. Is hitting the cover off the ball. He's a left-hander, which they need. No more Soto. I think he's going to replace Stanton as that DH. May rotate with some other guys, but I think they're going to give the kid a shot first at DH. He's got power as a left-handed bat, so let's see what he's got. Judge has to get going because Judge sometimes, Chris, gets off to a slow start. He has those slow starts in April, Chris. He can't afford that this year. There's no Soto, there's no Stanton. He's got to get off to a better start, and Volpe has to get off to a hot start, Chris. He has to.
So what's their outfield look like coming in?
The outfield's going to be Dominguez, Bellinger, and Judge. Yeah. The infield is going to be Goldschmidt, who tweaked his back a little bit, but suppose he's all right. It's going to be Goldschmidt, Chisholm, Volpe. And third base, Chris, I think I still don't know if they've made a final decision on third base.
Well, it seems like they're going to be a little piecemeal going in. And on the other side, Mark.
There was a Rafael Devers sighting in a real spring training game this week, Chris.
There was. And, I
was looking for him on a milk carton.
I got to tell you, Nesson's a joke.
Yeah.
Nesson's such a bad network. Do you know they don't even carry all the games? They use the other team's broadcast?
Yeah, it's bad. They save money. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
It's a bad network. It's tough to watch. Anyway, what do you make of this team now? I mean, this team has injury problems too. They got Devers thing hanging around. Even though
Devers supposedly is okay now, and they straightened that out. Chris, do you believe it?
No, I don't believe it. Let me ask you something. Is it that he's just because we want to get to NCAA, but is it just that he wants to play in the field? Put him at first.
Yeah, I think it's
not as good as Cassis is better.
But I think it's his ego more than anything else, Chris. I think it's just the fact.
How about at shortstop? Are you confident that Story's going to stay healthy? Could Devers play back to short because he played short before, didn't he?
Nah, I don't think his body. He can't play there anymore. The way his body has changed since he came up. No, he can't play short.
And he's going to have to accept it. Period.
Listen, and then you got the young kids, Maya and Campbell, who look like they may get playing time, Chris.
Why wasn't Campbell? Why is it taking so long to get this kid up playing?
Because, Chris, the ownership don't want to start the clock ticking because then you got to pay. Once the clock ticks, Chris, now they're eligible for arbitration. Now they're eligible for free agents. Yeah, like once the clock starts ticking, Chris, it's all about money with this organization. It's all about the money.
That's going to be the Celtics. So both of these teams kick off next week. Opening days for both of them.
Next week we'll give our predictions, Chris.
We will.
Where we think they'll end up with win totals and who we think's going to win these divisions, and we'll give a World Series prediction. Early prediction next week.
Okay, good. We will do that now. NCAA tournament has tipped off, and those playing games. Who cares? But we got the brackets done. I don't know where the hell Joe's is. I mean, his bracket.
Joe does this every year. Joe tries to turn it in after the class and says, "Oh, I didn't realize how to do it."
I mean, Mark and I did it. Mark and I did it by handwriting. We write
did
it
the
in.
old school way. Old school.
My dog ate my homework.
So you're gonna go. Hopefully, you're gonna go to a couple of these games. in
Well,
Providence.
so they're
or
playing
whatever.
in Providence, and I couldn't get today. I had stuff going on at work, and I couldn't go today. I was going to get tickets, but I'm
St.
definitely
John's in
gonna get-
Arkansas, if they play, they got to get.
Oh, I'm going to get tickets. I already told my son if Calipari and Patino are playing on Saturday, against each other, him and I are going to go. I'll get tickets.
So what do you
Yeah.
got? You got any upset? I got a few upsets.
So I had an upset listed. I had McNeese beating Clemson, which they did.
Hmm.
I had McNeese beating Clemson, which they did beat Clemson. So that was an upset I picked.
Hmm.
I think, Chris, my big surprise, I got Colorado State going to the Sweet 16. They got a couple of real good shooters. They play defense. They're going to surprise people, Chris. My biggest concern with them is they're going to get by Memphis.
Yeah.
If they get by Memphis, Chris, I think they'll have the confidence to win their next round game. They're going to get by the first game, but that's one of my upsets, Chris. I got Colorado State going to the Sweet 16.
No, I noticed that you know what? I got an upset in the I noticed that I have Memphis, you have Colorado State, I got Texas Tech, St. John's, I got all we're in line on all that. I had Clemson, so I lost that. Yeah, I mean, you and I are pretty much in line on the rest of it.
What it is,
except
Chris?
we get to the Elite Eight. See, I got Iowa State beating Michigan State.
Yeah.
In the 16, and then to get to the 8, and then I have Auburn going against Florida in the semis, which is not it's
not a big. Listen, here's what I came up with, Chris. I always like to try to pick a couple of underdogs, maybe one to get to the Final Four. But when you looked at the college basketball season this year, there was some parity, but I thought the top 5-6 teams, Chris, there was a big drop off after those teams to the rest of the field. That's why I think your Final Four is going to be mostly 1 and 2 seeds, Chris.
I'll tell you an update that I have that you're going to be like, what the hell are you doing? I got, and I don't know if they played yet or not. I haven't seen it, but I have Liberty over Oregon.
That's a good one. You always get upsets, Chris. The biggest upset number in the history of this tournament is the 5-12 game. Is the biggest upset seeding wise in the history of this tournament. And guess what McNeese Clemson was? A 5-12.
Yeah, so that's not the one I chose.
And I took McNeese. But no, and I'll tell you what, historically, Chris, every time they come to Providence, there's an upset in Providence. Every time the NCAAs come to Providence, there's an upset in Providence. And we had a 12 beat a 5. I was at the game where Princeton, I was in college. Princeton has the shot at the buzzer to beat Georgetown. I think Georgetown was either a 1 or a 2 seed. What was
the 12-5 in that bracket?
McNeese was the 12 and Clemson was the 5.
Yeah, but they're not in the Providence. Games,
McNeese and Clemson's in Providence
because they're not in the same bracket as St. John's.
No, but they do it differently. They do the pods now, Chris. So you can be in an opening round game in one place,
and then you go somewhere else.
When you get to the Sweet 16, after the first 2 rounds, you go back to your region. They do pods, so they keep.
So Providence is doing like they're hosting different levels.
Yeah.
I can't follow it anymore.
Anyway, who's your Final Four and your national champion?
My Final Four is Auburn, Florida, Duke, Houston, Florida, Houston, and Florida winning it all.
Oh, you took them because I told you last week they're the best team I've seen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Listen, you,
Joe, get out of here.
He's just going to come down on me for everything. I mean, look, to me, they're the best. I thought they were the best team in the country. You have Houston, Duke, Florida, too, and all this.
Yeah,
and then you have Florida, Houston,
Florida,
like I do.
Listen, Florida, I'm going to be honest.
You just have Michigan State instead of
Chris,
Auburn.
If you watch, I always take Izzo. That was my wife's maiden name, so I got to take.
All right, hurry up. We're going to go.
Florida, Chris, I'm going to say this. If you watch them play, I watched the SEC tournament. They remind me so much of UConn last year. They just keep coming in waves and waves and waves. So I think you'll see them cut the nets down, but we'll see, Chris. It's always a great tournament.
All right. So you heard it here. Corso and Catone was presented by the Pats Nation. Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Hey, tomorrow we're going to have so much, including draft discussions, free agency, and so much more. Don't bring up Brady again, please. And come back next weekend, noon Eastern, as MLB season kicks off. Like Mark said, we'll have our picks and so much more. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Now find Corso and Catone on AM 790, The Score, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you podcast. Or subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch the chaos every Saturday at noon.